Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to examine topic sentences and what makes a good one. I'm going to base it off of that thesis that I came up with the other day using Jack London as a reference. I've seen a couple people that are going to use the London reference, which I'm cool with. You can use some similar points to what I've used. Just try not to copy this word for word, of course. And from what I've seen, nobody has similar ideas, of course, which is absolutely fine. Because I mean, a lot of the people who are going to use Nothing Gold Can Stay or Gone with the Wind have very similar ideas, which again is fine. Because I think most of you are pretty on track with why Hinton is using those things in the novel. And again, most of your thesis statements look pretty good. If your thesis statement did not respond to the prompt about intertextuality, about hey, pick one of the books or poems or, the Paul Newman movie, something like that, and tell me why Hinton uses it. Give me 3 reasons why. If your thesis isn't doing that, you need to go back and come up with a new one, okay? Because that's going to ruin your whole paper. I'll try to go through and look and make sure that we're on track for that after everybody gets their topic sentences posted, which today's assignment is to post your topic sentences, which is a pretty simple assignment because you've already got them in the form of your thesis, right? Points A, B, and C of your thesis will become your topic sentences. In fact, allow me to color code this so we can see kind of how this translates. So if we start here, give me just 1 second, guys. So I'm going to highlight that red and this so that we'll know that they're linked. Should have done this before, but I hadn't thought about it. Bear with me. So basically your thesis statement is going to have 3 separate points in it. Each of those 3 points then becomes a topic sentence, which is the first sentence of a body paragraph. We know this. Sometimes on the way, I see it get kind of lost in translation that those points should pretty much translate into a little bit more sophisticated version of what we see in our topic sentences. They should change a little bit, but they shouldn't change a lot. So we start with point A, that London's novels illuminate the cruelty and senselessness, or Hinton's reference to London's novels illuminates the cruelty and senselessness of the Rumble. When I get to a topic sentence, I lengthen that a little bit. Hinton references London's novels at the start of the Rumble as the boys circle Darien Paul, displaying the animalistic senselessness of the novel's violence. So by that, and I'll need to stay consistent and put quotes around the Rumble if I've done it the first time. You wouldn't have to, though. If you just wanted to say the Rumble and not put quotes around it, you could. I'm just doing that because I think it's a funny name. But I start with the cruelty and senselessness. By the time I get down here, it's displaying the animalistic senselessness of the novel's violence. So I'm expanding that a little bit to talk about the novel's violence as a whole, which I do think she's inferring. And I'm saying that there's an animalistic senselessness. Again, going back to London's work, that connects it to it. I can support this really easily. I can talk about the circling. I can talk about the way that Hinton references it specifically. If I wanted to, like I said, if I were writing this paper, I might quote something from Call of the Wild in the Buck and Spitz fight where where the wolves and the animals are circling them, or very early in Call of the Wild where the first dog Buck sees get killed. I don't remember her name. I want to say she was a female Newfoundland or something. He talks about how they circle her and then all the dogs jump in at once. Those images are very much like the Rumble. They're waiting on Darien Paul to start the violence, and then they all kind of jump into it. So I think that would be a very easy paragraph to write. But notice how I've taken this and I've expanded it a little bit and made it a bit more specific in my topic sentence. And it is an argument. You could argue that this is not true. You could argue that it's just a one-off reference talking about the image of the circling. So it is argumentative. All right, so point B. It draws a comparison of the man versus society conflict of the outsiders to the man versus nature conflicts of London's work. By invoking London, which means by calling his name, by referencing him, it's just a different word for reference. Hinton compares the man versus society conflict of the outsiders to the struggles against nature faced by London's protagonists. So I've expanded this a little bit to focus on the struggles that London's protagonists face and the main conflict of the outsiders, which I can apply to Ponyboy. So by this, now I'm prepared in this paragraph to compare Ponyboy to characters like Buck or the protagonist of White Fang, and I can compare the way that they struggle against their nature, right? It's natural for Buck to long for the wild, and for so long with all his masters and everything, you see him drifting further and further from society to his natural tendencies. In the outsiders, it's like Ponyboy's struggling against that natural tendency to, be a greaser and do all these bad things and hang out and become like, Dally and some of the others. And he's struggling to become better, and Derry and Soda are struggling to make him be better. So by invoking that, we can directly compare those two conflicts and find that they're not all that dissimilar. And I could reference things from Call of the Wild if I wanted to. Again, you wouldn't have to. I'm not asking you to do secondary sources. Or I could reference the way that Ponyboy struggles with certain things and how he feels like he belongs in certain places or doesn't belong in certain places, and how that struggle, that conflict in him is a lot like the conflict in Call of the Wild or White Fang. I could talk about that, and that's a pretty easy one to support as well. Then points to a lack of free will on the part of the characters. This builds off of point B. I hope you can see that green color on the screen. I think you can. So through the comparison to London's battles of nature and civilization, Hinton, and these are internal battles again, the characters face in London's work, Hinton implies an animal destiny and absence of freedom in her characters' behaviors. So what I mean by an animal destiny, again, I'm kind of echoing that senselessness that I talked about. Basically, they don't have a choice in this. They're destined to behave the way that society has forced on them. So I'm echoing both of these paragraphs in my third paragraph, which is a really strong way of building an argument. All of these have a connection, a thread that's going to kind of culminate in this final paragraph. So implying an animal destiny, implying a lack of free will, a lack of ability to make decisions, basically that the characters are following instinct, an absence of freedom in her characters' behaviors, meaning they're stuck in this certain way because of how society is. They don't have many choices. They don't have many options about who to be or what to do. Now, you could disagree with this. I don't fully agree with this. I think that some of the characters, I would say like Dally, and if I were going to write this essay myself, I might focus it more specifically on a character like Dally. But a character like Dally seems kind of stuck. He doesn't seem to have a lot of choice in the matter. Somebody like Ponyboy or Derry, I think, do have choices in the matter. I think that they have the opportunity to make something better of themselves, and I think it's implied in the book that they eventually will. But again, this is just for the sake of argument in this paper, and I think it is a good argument because it is arguable. You could disagree with it. And again, I wouldn't have to quote anything from London on this. I would just simply have to know it's books about wolves and dogs fighting and nature and all that. Could quote something from it. I could use that secondary source. Wouldn't have to. And again, I don't want you to get hung up on the specifics of the argument here. Okay, I want you to look more at how I take my 3 points and I expand them a little bit, make them slightly more specific in sentence form. Again, this is the start of paragraph 1, body paragraph 1, that is. This is the start of body paragraph 2. This is the start of body paragraph 3. And that's a pretty straightforward pattern for your paper. Basically, if you've written a good thesis with 3 clear points that are all different from one another but build on one another, you've got an essay. I mean, look at these. I could so easily find evidence from the Outsiders itself, or I could pull in those secondary sources if I wanted, and I've got paragraphs that I could write in 10 minutes each, and then I've just got to tack on a conclusion. I could finish an essay from this right here in about 30 minutes, and most of you could too. So spend time on your thesis, spend time on your topic sentences, because it will make the actual process of writing your essay very, very easy, and you'll end up with a strong essay in the end, because it would be really hard starting from this point with this thesis and these topic sentences to screw up an essay and get a bad grade on it. If you started from something like this, your grade's gonna be good unless you're trying to sabotage yourself. So with that said, get your topic sentences to me today. I've got the assignment posted. Just post them in a private comment like before. You can do A, B, and C, or you can just type a sentence, hit enter, type a sentence, hit enter, type the third sentence. That's fine too. However you format it, I'll be able to figure it out. Let me know if you've got any questions. I know some people are struggling with the intertextuality concept. Basically, like I said, I'm not looking for anything as in-depth or complex as what I've got here. This is at least high school level, if not college level, the way I've got this set up. Like I said, if I were writing it myself, I'd probably make it a bit more specific. But you don't have to do anything like this. You could simply say, I've seen people talk about Nothing Gold Can Stay and how, or Gone with the Wind, and how it mattered to Johnny and Pony's relationship, how it mattered to Ponyboy's character change, and how it had to do with the conflict of the novel. Those are 3 great points. They're simple points that are easy to argue, easy to support, but they're good, and they could get you a very good grade if you support them correctly. That's all I'm really looking for. I'm not looking for this in-depth literary analysis. If you give me that, awesome. But if you don't, that's okay. All I want to see is that you're interacting with the idea of Hinton using different novels and poems and things and naming them in the book and telling me why you think she does. Okay, that's it. It's not anything crazy. And I think this is a really good exercise in literary analysis that, even at its most basic level, is going to prepare you for English classes later on, because you'll have to do a lot of this kind of thing, in higher level English classes, in like late high school, especially if you take honors, college courses. You'll have to do this kind of thing, and probably a lot more in depth. So I'm just trying to prepare you for that. But again, I'm not expecting super high level work from this. Some of you will give it to me, some of you won't, and that's totally okay. I don't want you to panic. I don't want you to think, oh, Mr. Jones is going to bomb me if my thesis and topic sentences don't look like his. Think from past experience. I'm usually pretty generous on essays and things. I know we're not at school where I can, look over your shoulder and say, well, you should change this to this. It's going to be okay. See you guys.